Have you ever wondered if there's a map for the end of the world drawn up thousands of years ago? I mean, what if there's a direct line connecting an ancient Greek conqueror to a final apocalyptic judgment? Well, today we're going to trace that exact line, following the prophetic guide left for us in the books of Daniel and Revelation.
So here's how we're going to break this all down. We're starting with the prophecy's ancient roots, way back in Alexander the Great's empire. Then we'll shift to hear some voices from heaven delivering these last chance warnings. That leads to a massive separation of humanity, which sets the stage for the final judgment. And we'll end with the outpouring of the 7 bowls of God's wrath. Let's get into it. All right, so to really understand where these prophecies say we're heading, we've actually got to start by looking back, way, way back, to the rise and fall of one of history's most powerful empires. And this brings us to the big question, right? When we think about a future global leader, this figure known as the Antichrist, we probably imagine them coming from some modern superpower. But what if the answer isn't in today's headlines at all, but it's actually hidden in ancient geography? The book of Daniel points us to a very specific map. It all kicks off with Alexander the Great. I mean, in just about a decade, the man builds one of the biggest empires the world has ever seen. But then, right at the peak of his power, he dies. He's only 32. And just like the prophet Daniel predicted centuries before it even happened, his massive kingdom doesn't go to his kid. It just shatters.
So the empire breaks apart and gets divided up among 4 of his top generals, creating 4 new kingdoms. And you can see here on this table where those kingdoms were. In terms of the modern world, we're talking places like Egypt, Turkey, Syria, Iraq, and Greece. Now, according to the prophecy, one of these 4 regions is the key to everything that comes next.
And this is the crucial verse. Daniel describes a little horn, which is understood to be a future ruler, the Antichrist, springing up from one of those 4 ancient territories. This little historical detail is exactly why that part of the world is still such a huge focus for people who study prophecy today. Okay, so now the whole scene shifts. We're moving from earthly kingdoms to heavenly proclamations. And the vibe changes completely as we're introduced to a really special group of people and a series of divine announcements that, basically set the stage for the end. So first up, we meet this group of 144,000 people from Israel. Now, the book of Revelation says they are divinely protected through all the chaos on earth and then taken directly to heaven. They're called first fruits, which is a really symbolic term. It means they're just the very beginning, the first wave of a much larger spiritual harvest to come. So what makes this group so special? Well, the text points out 4 key things about them. They're described as being morally pure, totally loyal in their faith, they follow the Lamb wherever he goes, they are unflinchingly truthful, and ultimately they are seen as blameless. They're really a powerful symbol of spiritual victory right in the middle of all the chaos.
Okay, so with this group secured in heaven, 3 angels are sent out to deliver some final messages to the world, and they happen fast. The first angel preaches the gospel one last time to everybody. The second announces the coming fall of Babylon, which is a prophetic code word for this godless global system of commerce and culture. And the third gives this incredibly dire warning. Whatever you do, do not take the mark of the beast.
These angelic warnings, they lead directly to a great sorting of humanity. The world gets a final choice, and the result is 2 completely different outcomes, which are pictured as 2 symbolic harvests. So on one hand, you've got a harvest of souls, a reaping of all the people who listen to the warnings and turn to God. But on the other hand, there's a very different kind of harvest, the gathering of grapes for what's called the winepress of wrath. And that is a powerful, powerful symbol for a final, crushing judgment that leads right into the Battle of Armageddon. Yeah, let's talk about this winepress metaphor for a second. It's meant to be an image of just absolute, overwhelming judgment, where wickedness is crushed completely and decisively, just like grapes in a press. This moment really signifies the beginning of the end.
And the scale of this judgment is just staggering. Revelation describes the aftermath as a river of blood, flowing for about 180 to 200 miles. Now, to put that into perspective for you, that's the entire length of Israel's historic north-south battle corridor, stretching all the way from Armageddon down to Edom.
Now, you might be wondering, is this meant to be literal? Well, a lot of biblical interpretations see this as what's called apocalyptic hyperbole. The idea is that the language is symbolic. It's meant to paint a picture of destruction so huge, a judgment so total, that you just can't describe it in literal terms. So, before that final judgment is poured out, We get one last glimpse into heaven, which kind of sets the stage for the final act of this whole cosmic drama.
And the scene is just one of total triumph. All those people who were martyred on earth because they resisted the beast and his mark, we see them standing before God's throne. All their suffering on earth has been transformed into glory and worship in heaven.
I mean, the text couldn't be clearer. It says they had victory over the beast, over his image, and over his mark. They literally triumphed over the very system that tried to destroy them. It's this amazing contrast. You've got heavenly victory for the faithful and this imminent judgment waiting for the world below. And that brings us to the final sequence. These 7 bowl judgments, they are the most intense, rapid-fire outpouring of God's wrath in the entire tribulation period. This is it. The imagery is so direct and so severe. 7 angels pour out 7 bowls of judgment. And unlike the plagues that came before, this isn't a warning. It's not a partial judgment. The text describes this as the complete and final expression of God's wrath.
And these judgments just start rolling out with terrifying speed. Boom. Bowl 1. Horrible, painful sores break out on everyone who follows the beast. Boom. Bowl 2. The entire sea turns to blood, and every single living thing in it dies. Right after that, Bowl 3. Every river and spring, all the fresh water on the planet, also turns to blood.
And if that wasn't enough, the 4th angel targets the sun. But instead of going dark, it gets supercharged, with the power to literally scorch people with an unbearable fiery heat. There is nowhere to hide from this one.
So how does humanity react to all this? I mean, faced with these completely overwhelming plagues, do they finally repent? The text says no. Instead, they blaspheme God. They curse him. It's this final, defiant hardening of their hearts that pretty much seals their fate.
And that just leaves us with this chilling thought, doesn't it? The planet's water is blood. The population is covered in sores and being scorched by the sun, and the only response is to curse God. What could possibly be left in those final 3 bowls of wrath? What could possibly be worse?